The NBA in the 1990s didn't just change basketball, it changed how the world dressed. What started as small shifts in uniform cut and sneaker design grew into a global fashion movement. NBA players became style leaders, shaping trends that reached far beyond sports. From schoolyard hallways to hip-hop videos to runways, this era created the foundation for modern sneaker culture, streetwear, and athlete branding. The influence is still visible today, decades later. By the end of this video, you'll understand why 90s NBA fashion wasn't a trend. It was a permanent cultural shift. Before the 1990s, NBA fashion followed strict tradition. Shorts were short, jerseys were tight, colors were controlled. Players dressed nearly the same, and individuality stayed secondary to team identity. Style was not the focus. Performance was. But as the league entered the early 1990s, a new generation arrived with a different mindset. These players grew up during the rise of hip-hop, street culture, and expressive fashion. They brought those influences into the league, and the league would never look the same. The first visible change was the silhouette of basketball itself. Shorts became longer and wider, jerseys followed. Players suddenly occupied more visual space on the court, and the game began to look different on television. This shift wasn't accidental. Longer shorts allowed more freedom of movement, and they also made players look bigger and more dominant on broadcast screens, which mattered as the NBA expanded globally. One player accelerated this change more than anyone else. Michael Jordan had won the NCAA championship with the University of North Carolina in 1982 and held onto his college shorts as a lucky talisman. When he entered the NBA with the Chicago Bulls in 1984, his UNC shorts were visible beneath the standard Bulls uniform. So he asked for longer, baggier game shorts to cover them. As Jordan's global profile exploded, everything associated with him gained influence, including the way his shorts looked on TV. But Jordan lit the spark. It was 5 freshmen from the University of Michigan who turned it into a full blaze. In 1991, Chris Webber, Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard, Jimmy King, and Ray Jackson arrived at Michigan as the most hyped recruiting class in college basketball history. They wore long, baggy shorts, black socks, and black Nike high tops, deliberately referencing Jordan, and played with a swagger that was impossible to ignore. The Fab Five made it to back-to-back NCAA championship games in 1992 and 1993, and their look spread like wildfire. By the mid-1990s, short shorts were gone. The lone holdout? Utah Jazz point guard John Stockton, who kept rocking the short shorts until he retired in 2003. While baggy shorts were transforming what happened on the court, something equally powerful was happening in the stands, on street corners, and in school hallways across America. The starter jacket, founded in 1971 by David Beckerman in New Haven, Connecticut, the starter brand secured official licensing deals with the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL throughout the 1980s. What they made was unlike anything fans had worn before. Bold satin pullovers and zip-ups plastered with oversized team logos and sharp colorways. They weren't subtle. They were designed to be seen from across the street. By the early 1990s, starter jackets were everywhere, retailing for around $150, serious money at the time. They were genuine status symbols. Wearing one meant you had taste, team loyalty, and a little bit of clout. Some designs were so coveted they were reportedly targeted in robberies, which only added to their mystique. The NBA teams with the most iconic starter jackets weren't just the most successful teams. They were the most visually striking. The Charlotte Hornets' teal and purple colorway became one of the most recognized designs of the decade. The Chicago Bulls jacket riding Jordan's dynasty was a bestseller year after year. The Orlando Magic's version, tied to Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, flew off shelves. Hip-hop culture supercharged the phenomenon. Artists like Tupac, Snoop Dogg, Criss Cross, and LL Cool J wore starter jackets in music videos and on album covers, fusing sports identity with street credibility. The jacket wasn't just about which team you supported anymore. It was about who you were. Starter's dominance peaked between 1990 and 1996. The company eventually filed for bankruptcy in 1999 as competition grew and tastes shifted. But like everything from this era, the starter jacket never truly died. It just became vintage, and vintage eventually becomes gold again. As uniforms and fan gear evolved, sneakers underwent an even more dramatic transformation. In earlier eras, basketball shoes were designed mainly for function. In the 1990s, they became cultural symbols. This shift happened because players became brands. The partnership between Michael Jordan and Nike, which began in 1984 with the original Air Jordan, changed sports marketing forever. Each signature release told a story tied directly to moments on the court. Shoes were no longer just footwear. They were memory markers. The Air Jordan 11, worn during Chicago's 1995-96 championship season when the Bulls went 72-10, became one of the most iconic sneakers ever made. Fans didn't just want to wear what Jordan wore. They wanted to feel connected to greatness. This model spread across the league. Penny Hardaway's Nike signature line reflected smoothness and creativity. Shaquille O'Neal's Reebok Shaqnosis, with their hypnotic swirl pattern, emphasized power and personality. Allen Iverson's Reebok question and answer lines represented speed, edge, and rebellion. For the first time, fans chose shoes based on identity, not just performance. This was the birth of modern sneaker culture. Sneaker demand changed how fans interacted with basketball. Release dates became events. Lines formed outside stores. Shoes became status symbols that traveled far beyond the court. People wore basketball sneakers with jeans, jackets, and everyday outfits. Paired with a starter jacket, a pair of Air Jordans wasn't a sports outfit. It was a look. Basketball style had become street style, and the two would never fully separate again. While sneakers dominated attention, off-court fashion evolved just as quickly. The NBA of the 1990s grew alongside hip-hop culture, and the two fed each other constantly. Hip-hop emphasized confidence, authenticity, and self-expression. NBA players embraced those values naturally. They arrived at arenas wearing baggy jeans, oversized jackets, hoodies, chains, and fresh sneakers. There were no stylists, no image consultants. These were real outfits, extensions of where these players came from. The walk from the parking lot to the locker room began to take on meaning. Long before the age of social media tunnel walk content, the pre-game arrival was becoming a stage. No player represented this shift more clearly than Allen Iverson, who arrived in the league with the Philadelphia 76ers in 1996. His style reflected his upbringing, not league expectations. Cornrows, tattoos, oversized clothing, everything about his look challenged traditional standards of what an NBA player was supposed to look like. This wasn't fashion designed to please everyone. It was fashion designed to be honest. And that honesty connected deeply with fans, especially younger fans who saw themselves reflected in it. Warm-up gear became iconic during this era. Teams wore full matching suits with bold colors, oversized logos, and shiny materials. These outfits were designed to stand out on television, and they did. Players wore them during introductions, on the bench, and outside arenas. Fans copied the look. The NBA's expansion teams of the early 90s, Charlotte, Orlando, Miami, Minnesota, launched with some of the most visually distinctive identities in sports history. And their warm-up gear reflected that boldness. Today, these exact designs are re-released again and again because they still work. As the decade progressed, NBA fashion reshaped the business of sports. Player image became a financial asset. Brands realized fans weren't just buying products, they were buying stories. Shoes and jerseys and starter jackets were tied to moments, championships, rivalries, playoff runs. Basketball stars became global figures. Kids around the world didn't just learn the game, they learned the style. A kid in Tokyo, in Paris, in Lagos, they all knew what a Bulls starter jacket meant. The influence of 90s NBA fashion is still visible today. Oversized fits dominate modern fashion. Throwback jerseys sell out instantly. Retro sneakers release year after year and still cause lines outside stores at 5 in the morning. Starter jackets are back. The Fab Five's look is back. The Charlotte Hornets teal is back. Everything that happened in those 10 years, from Jordan asking for bigger shorts to cover his lucky UNC bottoms, to kids camping outside Foot Locker for a pair of Air Jordans, to rappers wearing satin team jackets in music videos, all of it built something that no one planned and no one could stop. It wasn't a trend, it was a cultural shift, and it's still happening.